Let's talk about double bass drumming. Today I'd like to discuss the 3 biggest bass drum frustrations that I encountered with my own playing and also with my students so far. You're going to learn how these 3 frustrations can hinder your progress big time, and we're going to discuss how you can resolve each of these 3 frustrations as quickly as possible. When I bought my first double pedal many years ago, I made decent progress the first couple of weeks. I started at an extremely slow tempo, I was patient, and I practiced 4 to 5 times per week. Then suddenly at one point I stopped progressing and reached my first plateau with 16 notes at around 120 beats per minute. I used to have good days where I would be able to play up to 120 or even 125 BPM, but on bad days I wasn't even able to play 16 notes at 100 beats per minute. I later learned that I fell into this frustrating category that I like to call the stomper. So I was just using my upper leg to generate each stroke and had a hard time staying balanced when playing double bass. More on the stomper a little later. After that, I learned to incorporate the muscle groups in my lower leg as well. To be precise, I learned how to incorporate my calves way more. And as you can guess, it didn't take me that long until I hit that next frustration, which I like to call the fast cat. The fast cat is a drummer that's able to play tempos above 200 beats per minute, but has a hard time playing to a click at a certain tempo. So my hits were all over the place and I was never really sure if I was playing triplets or 16s or was just floating somewhere in between. It was just a mess. So it took me years to get rid of those frustrations, and funny fact is that I've seen my students face the exact same challenges as well. So at one point I came up with these 3 archetype of double bass frustrations that many drummers out there seem to face at one point. These 3 are: number 1, the rock drummer, number 2, the stomper, and number 3, the fast cat. So let's start with the rock drummer. The rock drummer uses his whole leg to generate each stroke. He's used to playing this way because his main goal when he first started out was playing the bass drum as loud as possible. His heel is raised off of the floor and his calf muscles are contracted all the time. Although his calves are not actively involved in generating each stroke, he still feels sore in his calves after playing drums. So what's happening here is that the rock drummer is not using his calf muscle to their full potential, which results in hitting a barrier somewhere around 160 or 170 beats per minute. Solving this problem is a bit tricky because most of the time the rock drummer is used to playing this way and he has done so for many years. So this whole movement is stored to his muscle memory, and as soon as he sits in front of his pedals, he starts to contract his calf muscle, raises his heels and starts playing the same old way again. The goal now is to store a different kind of movement to his muscle memory. The hip flexors of the rock drummer are developed just fine, so at this point I start to work with my students on the flexibility of their calf muscles. And the best way to do so is by just placing your feet on the floor like this and raise and lower your heels continuously. Make sure to just use your calf muscle to raise your heels and then relax your calves to let your heels drop down to the floor again. You can practice this with each foot separately or just with regular single strokes, right, left, with both feet on the floor. Once my students are able to control this motion on the floor at slow and medium tempos, it's time to play on the pedals again. One thing that I always recommend is to sit further away from the bass drum pedal. If you sit really close to the pedal, it's way easier to mainly use your upper legs, especially your hip flexors, to generate each stroke. If you sit further away, it's way easier to use a mix of upper and lower leg all the time, which is exactly what we want right now. Alright, now let's talk about the second frustration, the so-called stomper. The stomper is a bit different from the rock drummer because he's using just his hip flexors, but his calf muscles are not involved in this movement at all. This may sound familiar to some of you because this is the definition of the flat foot technique. The flat foot works great, but once you want to play faster than 200 beats per minute, it's way easier when you start to incorporate your calf muscle as well. The main problem here is that this kind of drummer is starting to use his hip flexors exclusively once they sit down at the drum kit. So what has worked best so far for my students who are facing this problem is the following. You want to sit in a position where you are not able to use your hip flexors at all. A position where you need to rely only on your calves. And the perfect way to do so is to lower the seat height to a point where the knee joints are located higher than the hip joints. I don't recommend to play drums like this for a long time because sitting that low puts extreme stress on your lower back, which is definitely not beneficial in the long run. But for a short period of time, I recommend to change your seat height to a very low level. If you sit so low, your hip flexors are not able to help and assist you when you play double bass. And at a certain point, your calves have to take over to make each stroke happen. Now let's continue with archetype number 3, the fast cat. The fast cat is a drummer who is able to play medium and up tempos, but he's not able to play tight to a click, and his tempo increases and decreases all the time. To top this off, most fast cats are not even able to play double bass at tempos between 100 to 140 beats per minute. You have all heard about this nervous twitching motion which can't be controlled. That's the problem that they got. The fast cat is used to just using his calf muscle when playing double bass, but he hasn't developed feel and control over his lower leg to a certain degree. So the fast cat is able to play fast, but can't really control the beta swing just yet. The solution to that problem is pretty simple. Beta weights. Beta weights make it way easier to play tight at higher tempos since the extra weight gives your legs and feet way more feedback. You'll have more resistance when you push down the footboard, and you also get more feedback right after the beta hits the bass drum head. You might think that beta weights will slow you down big time, but this is not true at all. Try it for yourself, you'll see and feel the difference right away. Remember, whether it's the studio or in a live situation, the drummer who is able to play tight to a click always gets the best gigs. So you got to make sure that you're able to play tight to a click at those faster tempos. I hope you had a lot of fun checking out these 3 double bass drumming frustrations with me today. As always, I hope that I could help you out on your personal drumming journey. If you are stuck at a certain point and want my personal feedback, then just join our community at drumtechniqueacademy.net. Right there you get access to more than 80 technique lessons and drumming courses right after you sign up. And you also get access to new hand technique tutorials, foot technique tutorials and workout videos each week. So make sure to join us there at drumtechniqueacademy.net. Also make sure to subscribe so that you never miss another video again. Leave a like in case you learned something new today, and don't forget to comment below if you'd like me to cover a certain topic next. I hope you are having a great day, my friends. Cheers from Vienna. Bye bye.